More. First of all, I want to thank you for participating with this and just explain to the people who I'm going to post this later on. This is a commemoration of 30 years of youth work, community work that I've been doing. I call it 30 for 30. So this year I'm doing 30 small events and activities, this being one of them, to just kind of commemorate, the work over the time. I hope it don't seem too self-congratulatory, but it is what it is, right? But welcome, welcome. So we're just going to start off with an introduction of who you are, your name, and kind of where you at currently, and go from there.
So my name is Megan Washington Sims. Currently, I am a doctoral candidate at Governor State University in University Park, Illinois. Um, I'm also well, I want to say I do a lot, but
A mother.
um, I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a 4-year-old, and I've been a public servant working in nonprofit and for government the majority of my adult life. So,
Yeah, okay. Well, I wanted to find some people who I worked with or worked through, or we worked in the same organization or something to do these interviews as one of my activities this year. And you are the first person who responded. I think your response was absolutely. So I was like, oh, jump on this while she got some free time because I know everybody busy. But how did we meet? Let's kind of backtrack a little bit. How do I know you? How do we know each other?
so we met through LISC
Right,
in
right, that's right.
2014,
Man, it was
yeah,
that long ago?
or was it 2013?
That's even longer. Okay. Through Lesk, right.
Yeah, 20, it was 2013.
Okay, 2013. Ooh,
2013. Yeah,
so
something like
12,
that. You know
12.
what? No, let me think. I'm trying to think. When did I started my master's in 2014. So I'm trying to
Well, it's got
backtrack
to
it.
be close because where I'm working at now, I've been working there 8 years. So I know it's been, yeah, about that long. You're right.
So we met at LISC through the AmeriCorps program.
So I think, were you in the first cohort of AmeriCorps students that I was working with, or were you in that second cohort?
I believe I was in the second.
Okay, and where were you located at? Where were you situated?
I was with North Lawndale Employment Network.
Sure was. I'm doing some work with them now. Okay. Okay, so working that list,
You
I
doing some work with them now?
with not with list, but with the North Lawndale Employment Network.
Hey, Miss Brenda.
No, no, she not there. Oh, just a shout out. I get you. Yeah. Shout out
Yeah.
to Miss Brenda
Yeah.
Palm. She runs the North Lawndale Employment Network. And I just in the beginning of the year, right? No, I can't remember what it was. I do storytelling events. I did a storytelling event at her cafe, which is a beautiful little cafe
Love.
called
Mhm.
Be Love Cafe, right down the street from my 9 to 5. So it was great, and we don't plan on doing some more work together. So I just saw Brenda and her team not long ago. So yeah, but you weren't working at that location, were you?
No, I was at the little house on Flournoy.
Exactly. So since we've given our plugs, North Carolina Employment Network is not only an employment network for returning citizens, but also for students. And they own a bee farm and they make products around
Mhm.
honey, and they make perfume, I mean makeup and foundation, I believe, and
And
lotion
got
and
some
soap.
good honey, and that lip balm is the bomb.
Yeah. Yeah. I bought some just randomly for a colleague. It was her birthday. And I was like, boom. And she was like, when I gave it to her, she was like, oh, okay. But then when she used it, she was like, oh, that stuff is dope.
They have excellent products. Shameless
Yeah.
plug. It's
Yeah.
it really
No,
is
no shame. No shade. No shame. That's
right.
that's what's up. So when I worked for Lisk, I was managing a group of students. I want to say it was about 10 or 12 of y'all.
Mhm.
And each one of them were placed at a different site working through AmeriCorps, which
Mhm.
is a program where you got to get so many hours of volunteer work, and then you end up getting a stipend and
Mhm.
education award. So that's how I know Megan. I forgot about that, Megan. I couldn't really. Did you do two terms with AmeriCorps or just one?
No, so I did the one term and then like mid or kind of towards the end of my term, I got hired by by Catholic Charities.
Okay, okay, and then you left AmeriCorps.
Yeah. And then
Okay,
I started my career in Chicago in the nonprofit sector.
okay, and that's where you at now.
No, I work for the state now. So that's why I work now. I work for the state.
Okay, okay, okay. So that's what you do now.
Yeah,
So
I work in child welfare. I ain't gonna say too much because they act a little funny
okay, we can get off that.
with name dropping, but
Yeah, we ain't gonna drop their name. That's what's up.
yeah.
So when I asked you to do this, you were game. Why was you so game to do this? Why you ain't think about it like, oh, let me think about it. I don't want to do that.
It was effortless because like making that connection with you through the AmeriCorps program, it kind of like was a catalyst for me in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um for my career
Mm-hmm.
to to get that experience working in nonprofit and in NLEN, gaining a new skill which at that time was facilitating and resume writing and different things like that, helping me to become comfortable in my skin talking to people and developing content and teaching content and different things like that. So we have that piece and then that inspired me of course to go to grad school and um I got my master's in nonprofit management through Spertus. So
So okay. Is there any particular time that stands out to you during a AmeriCorps experience or us working together that kind of like was significant for you, or like, oh, this is some work I want to do, especially since you still kind of work in this field?
I like the when we would all come together and have our meetings.
That we had to do.
And just get to brainstorm and kind of strategize and even with like how to navigate conflict in the workplace and different things like that. We talked about our programming and how that was going, strengths, weaknesses, and you would always avail yourself to support us. So that's what really stands out, and I feel like that experience, especially someone who had at that time like a budding career, I feel like I learned a lot of skills.
Oh, okay.
A lot of skills.
Were you planning on going into the nonprofit field before you started working in this space with AmeriCorps?
Oh yeah, I knew for since I was a kid that I wanted to, be like in social services and different things like that. But just being able to be in that space um and learn so much, it kind of helped me find like what my path was, which ultimately ended up being youth.
Mm.
Youth development, child welfare, different things like that. And but if it were not for those experiences, I would not have been able to solidify like this is what I want to do. This is the population that I want to serve. And I feel that just in a general sense, anyone who like works in a field, it's okay to, try different roles and different things like that, even if it's not necessarily 100% your passion, because you're going
Mhm.
to learn something. So, for example, even with working with kids, you still got to deal with adults. So it's good. It's
Sometimes
good to
act like
know.
kids, right?
It's good to know how to work with them, how to support them, what different services and resources are, out there and that are available. So yeah.
Okay. So, what would you tell somebody that's going into this field? Matter of fact, what would you tell Megan, the young Megan that was first day of AmeriCorps, you getting into this space? Is there anything that you would equip her with, some information or tools?
Aside from telling her it's all gonna work out in the end, because I bounced around, full transparency. I'm a millennial, so I bounced around a bit
Hmm.
in nonprofit, but I wasn't going after money. It
Right.
helped, but I was going after experience. And
Hmm.
once I decided that I want to work with kids, I was like, I want to work with them in every environment that I can, just
Mm.
to see how they are in different spaces. So, with the exception of corrections, I've worked with kids in every space: schools, residential facilities, group homes, psych hospitals, you
Right.
name it. I've worked with them there in some capacity. But it's to me it's good to see how they operate in different spaces.
Okay. And obviously, you're still working with kids to this day. So, like you say, since you was younger, you wanted to do this kind of work. That was a blessing to know. That's what you wanted to do so young. How did that come about? How did you know that at such a young age?
So I was fostered and later adopted by my great grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had at that time Aunt Martha's was the agency that actually was like managed our case, which was considered kinship care. And so I could remember like the lady come to the house, pick us up, take us to McDonald's or Chuck E. Cheese, ask us questions, making sure we weren't being abused and neglected, that type of stuff. But just being active and being engaged and interacting with our family. And I didn't have a name for it really then, but I was like, whatever that is, I want to do that. Like, but
Okay.
it was a caseworker, but that's what I was like, I wanted to be like them.
Mm.
So I knew that it was like that or a teacher. And I ultimately end up being able to do both. So yeah.
Okay. So you used to teach too. You work for CPS, Chicago Public
No,
Schools.
I'm actually a college professor.
Oh, where is it at Spartacus too, or where you graduated
I'm
from?
at Southern New Hampshire University.
What? So what are you teaching? What's your
I'm
area?
teaching undergraduate courses now. One is cultural diversity, and then pretty soon I'll be teaching some courses, undergrad courses in human services. And yeah, like that's one thing that I feel like overall I've had a good career considering all the things that I've done and what I would consider like a very condensed um time frame, being able to give back and be able to share some of that practical knowledge in the field because
Right.
the textbooks are great,
Yeah.
but that experience, that real life, that's a different.
Yeah.
You're
Different.
not gonna be you're not gonna be thinking about theory
Right.
when you got a
Right.
client in front of you.
Right.
So,
That's why I really like the AmeriCorps experience because it kind of gets you a little bit of both. You could have been in school already, and then you can come in and you ain't made no long-term commitment with this organization. Yet you can come in, get your feet wet, then step back and be like, "Ooh, I love this. I want to go further." Or you can be like, "You know what? Let me take my award and my money and dip and go somewhere else." Yeah.
and I it's something that I would recommend as well. Programs like AmeriCorps.
Hmm.
I know that there is, people have their thoughts on what is considered to be free labor, but volunteer work,
Yeah.
I got so much experience in volunteer work, so many trainings, so many certifications, and I've gotten at least two jobs from being a volunteer. Like I started off as
Okay.
a volunteer, and it's like, oh, you're so great, we love you. You want to work? That type of stuff. So,
Yeah. I never
and
heard it be never heard volunteer work being described as free labor before, but I can see how somebody would do that, especially somebody's like AmeriCorps where you actually getting a stipend and you get an educational award. Because I've done volunteer work for places and all you getting is a bottle of water and maybe some chips. You know what I'm saying? But it
yeah, but we
do.
we got this new generation coming up behind us though, and it's
Mm,
like they're kind of taught that everything is transactional, in some
mm,
instances, and it's not always about that, especially when you want to build a career.
yeah.
If you want to go into, even if you say our field, you're going to have some type of internship or something like that. And sometimes, they're looking at, if they have to compare resumes, they're going to look at, this person got volunteer experience. They're on all these clubs and activities at the university. in comparison to someone who may not have volunteered or may not have done like a AmeriCorps program or, something like that. And it could be the deciding factor. So I will always encourage someone, consider the competitive edge.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that. Okay. Um, so let me make sure I got this straight. You work for the state, but you also a teacher at a university and a mama.
Yeah.
Whew, girl, you better get off this phone and start prepping meals or
And
something.
finish and finishing my doctorate. So yeah.
Okay, so you got your master's and now you're working on your PhD.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'll walk in May and I'll be done in the summer.
Done with your PhD.
Yes.
Hats off to you. I love that. Well, part of the reason why I wanted to do this is because, you know, when you work with people, especially in this kind of arena,
Hmm.
you see them in a good way. Thank God for Facebook, because at least you can kind of still connect with people in some way. But sometimes you never see these people again. You never see what what their end game was, what happened to them. Did they make it through? So I'm so glad to see that you still pressing toward the market of high call and still doing your thing out here in these streets. And I hope that the work that we did together through AmeriCorps list slash AmeriCorps, that it was beneficial, and my presence in your life has been such. So that's again the reason why we're doing this. And I'm so glad to see you thriving and moving forward.
Thank you. Like I said, it is the opportunity. It definitely was it set a good foundation for me.
Yeah.
In this line of work because though I have a lot of direct service experience, I don't necessarily have a direct service degree. All of my degrees are like administrative, behind the scenes programming, all of that different stuff. So to be able to, marry the two by having that, direct
Mhm.
service experience, my outlook, when it's time to do strategic planning and program evaluation and all that stuff is different. Because
Mm.
I've sat in meetings and board meetings and they, with the folks at the top and they got all these lofty ideas. And I'm like, yeah, implementation for that is going to be challenging. And
Mm.
here's why. And here's why.
Right.
Dealing with what we see and what we face on the ground every day. So it sounds nice and it looked pretty and, it's a wonderful presentation. But what is the plan for implementation? What is the strategy for that? Because just because it looks good and sound good on paper doesn't mean, that it is going to be easy on the ground to run as far as programming and meet those metrics and set those goals and
Yeah.
give the funders the happy stories that they want to see.
All right. Well, speaking of stories, I got two last questions for you. Do you have any stories you like to share about our time together when we worked together at List slash AmeriCorps that stands out to you? Not just an experience, maybe a personal story.
So I remember when I was facing like a challenge at my site. And I remember you giving me very, sound advice on how to navigate that challenge. And
Mm,
even when it was time for me to, to transition and I had accepted another, a job offer, just, weighing the pros and cons and, making sure that you do the right thing, that you give a proper notice because you never know when you're going to have to, circle back and different things like
mhm.
that. And social services is big, but it's small.
You're right, right.
And you
Especially
will
when
run into a person and your name is all you have in this field.
said,
Once your
you're
name
right
is
about that.
bad, your name is bad. And be like, uh-uh.
I know her. Don't mess with her. Now they ain't gonna say that in the interview, but they will call
No.
people that they know and be like, "Look, oh, I had an interview with such and such," and you be like, "What? Okay, call me after work. I will give you the lowdown on them."
Right. And
Yeah,
I've been in spaces where, I'm on the person and it's time to interview and hire and some folks walk in, I'm gonna be pleasant. But I'm gonna be like, nah, tell you about this experience. Unless they've grown, because people do grow.
that's true.
You don't want to be like, yeah, they don't get to work on time. It's always something going on, So yeah, your name is all you have. And
That's
you
true.
were
That's
big
true.
on us just making sure that we stay professional and then also too, being committed to the work that we do, being mindful of how we speak about the populations in which we serve. All of those things to me have just been invaluable. Um,
Great.
and it's set the tone for a lot of work. And also too, you encouraged us to think.
Mm,
Think about, if you're facing a problem, don't just run from it. Let's take some steps back and let's critically think about this and face this challenge head on, and how can we maneuver, and how can we move forward if the relationship is not the best, as far as with your colleagues or whatever. How can we repair this? What went wrong? That
yeah,
type of stuff. So you were, in my opinion, you were an excellent problem solver. And that's something that, when faced with conflict, especially in this field, it happens a lot.
yeah,
But
that's
just
true.
knowing how to advocate for yourself, but also tactfully and professionally do that.
Yeah, that is great. That's good to hear. Now you already talked a little bit about your end game, but just wrap it up. What's your end game? Where are you headed with all of this, with the teaching and getting your PhD? What's your goal? What's your plan?
So teaching is my way of giving back to my field. It's something that I always want to do, to be able to share that real life practical experience with students. Um, as far as my day job, definitely aspire to move up, to an administrator role, with them. And ultimately, I'd like to, be able to do some work with young ladies ages 18 to 24 who are
Mm,
experiencing, crisis regarding housing,
mm,
and being able to support that. So still haven't figured out how I'm going to navigate that with everything, but seasons
right.
change, so at some point it may not be something that I can do right now, but it may be something 10 years down the line or whatever the case may be. But it's definitely a need that I see with that population of young people, homelessness, not having nowhere to go,
Right,
nowhere
right.
safe to go. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
something that I like to address. And I don't know who gonna hear this, but I would love a school to repurpose for
no,
a
to own a
facility,
school.
to own a school, to repurpose it
Right.
as a housing facility where you can have resources and things like that, and then um have it to where they can transition out into their own like apartments and different things like that. So
That's
that's what
dope.
I would love to have one day. So if they're giving some schools away, or they need a
No, that's it. Then
they want
close
to know
50
how
days.
I'm planning to repurpose it, I'm
There
all.
you go. Okay. Well, listen, first of all, it's good to see that you're doing so well. Please tell your daughter or give her a hug. I never met her before, but I know that I can imagine being a mom is a full-time and a half job. And it's like you got two other full-time jobs. So I know you stay busy. So thank you for giving this time. For me, it's good to see you again. And when we post this, I will definitely let you know. I appreciate you.
No problem. Anything, Clarence, anytime.
All right. Hold on.